The cavern seemed to ripple as the machine's voice filled the space, resonating through the walls and into the very core of Elena's being. Prove your worth. Elena stood frozen before the glowing core, her hand still hovering over its shimmering surface. Behind her, the rest of the team tensed, weapons aimed at the crystalline constructs that remained eerily motionless. The hum of the machine deepened, vibrating through the cavern floor. Elena, what's happening? Kane's voice was sharp, cutting through her daze. I don't know, she whispered. It wants something from me. Zara ducked behind a nearby outcrop, furiously typing on her tablet. Whatever it is, make it quick. The energy levels are spiking again, and if this thing decides we're not worthy, it's game over. The core pulsed, and suddenly the space around Elena shifted. The cavern blurred, its jagged walls replaced by a vast expanse of stars. She was no longer on the planet's surface, but in an endless void, standing alone under a swirling galaxy of light. Elena! Kane's voice was distant, like a whisper carried on the wind. She turned in every direction, but the team was gone. Where am I? She called out. You are within the threshold, the machine's voice replied, deep and layered. To alter the fate of this world, you must confront the truth of your kind. The stars around her shifted, forming scenes like holographic memories. She watched in awe as the images began to take shape. A massive fleet of colony ships appeared, their sleek designs unmistakably human. She recognized them from historical archives, the first wave of humanity's expansion into the galaxy. The ships descended onto lush, untouched planets, their engines transforming barren worlds into habitable environments. But the scene darkened. The terraforming technology began to spiral out of control, crystal formations overtaking entire ecosystems. Colonists fled their settlements, desperate to escape the chaos. Elena's stomach churned as she watched the realization dawn on their faces. Their own creations had turned against them. This is why humanity left, she whispered. We couldn't control it. You abandoned your creation, the machine intoned, and in doing so, abandoned us. The scene shifted again, this time showing the descendants of those colonists. Left behind, they had adapted to the planet's crystalline environment. Their bodies became hybrids, fusing with the same technology that had once threatened their existence. Over centuries, they evolved into something both human and alien. Elena fell to her knees. We didn't know. We thought leaving was the only way to survive. You chose survival over responsibility, the machine replied. Now, your kind returns, and the balance is shattered once more. Back in the cavern, the rest of the team watched in growing panic as Elena stood unmoving, her hands still outstretched toward the core. Kane barked orders to Zara. Get her out of there! Zara waved a hand toward the constructs. And how exactly am I supposed to do that without getting us all killed? Yates pointed to the glowing conduits. We don't even know what that thing is doing to her. If this is some kind of trap... It's not a trap, Elena's voice suddenly echoed, cutting through their argument. She turned to face them, though her eyes seemed distant, as if she were seeing another world. It's testing me. Testing us. What the hell does that mean? Kane demanded. The machine doesn't trust us, she said, her voice steadier now. It knows what humanity did here, what we left behind. It wants to know if we're worthy of fixing what we broke. Worthy? Zara scoffed. We're not here to pass some cosmic morality test. We're here to stop this planet from tearing itself apart. Elena turned back to the core, her resolve hardening. If we want to stop it, we have to earn its trust. Destroying it isn't the answer. It'll only destabilize the planet first, or we have to find another way. The core pulsed again, and Elena felt herself drawn deeper into its energy. The void around her reappeared, but this time she wasn't alone. A figure emerged, its form shifting between human and crystalline shapes. It radiated a quiet power, its voice echoing in her mind. You seek to repair the balance, but do you understand what it will cost? What cost? Elena asked, her voice trembling. The cost of sacrifice, the figure replied. To stabilize this world, you must link it to your own. The energy will flow between them, but at great risk. If the balance falters again, the destruction will not be contained to this planet. It will spread to the galaxy beyond. Elena's breath caught. The choice was clear. Stabilize the planet and risk a catastrophe, or leave it to collapse and preserve the rest of the galaxy. I don't know if I can make that decision, she admitted. The figure's glowing eyes bore into her. The choice is not yours alone. It is humanity's. The void shattered, and Elena was back in the cavern. She stumbled, catching herself on the edge of a glowing conduit. The team rushed to her side, their expressions a mix of relief and fear. "What happened?" Kane asked. "It gave us a choice," Elena said, her voice hoarse. "We can stabilize the planet, but it means linking its energy to our own. If we fail, the entire galaxy could pay the price." "That's not a choice," Zara said flatly. "That's a suicide mission." Kane clenched his fists, his jaw tight. "And if we don't stabilize it?" "The planet collapses," Yates said grimly, "and everything on it, including them." They all turned to the crystalline constructs, still standing motionless at the edges of the cavern. Their glowing eyes flickered, as though waiting for a decision. Elena met Kane's gaze. "We came here to fix what we broke. We can't just leave them to die." Kane exhaled slowly, then nodded. "Helios, prepare to link the energy network. Zara, Yates, get ready for anything." Zara muttered a curse but didn't argue. This better work. The core pulsed brighter as Helios interfaced with the machine. The conduits glowed, their energy intensifying until the entire cavern was bathed in light. Elena closed her eyes, praying that the balance would hold. The machine's voice echoed one last time, reverberating through the cavern. "Balance initiated. Do not falter." As the light dimmed, the team felt the cavern stabilize beneath their feet. The hum of the machine quieted, its once threatening presence now subdued. For now, they had succeeded. But as Elena looked at the core, she couldn't shake the feeling that their actions had set something far greater into motion. The forgotten galaxy wasn't finished with them yet. The cavern was silent except for the faint hum of the machine, now reduced to a steady rhythm that felt more like a heartbeat than the chaotic roar from before. The glowing conduits pulsed softly, their once blinding light now a calm, rhythmic shimmer. Dr. Elena Carter sat on a crystalline outcrop, her hands trembling. The decision they had made felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. Linking the planet's energy to their own galaxy had stabilized the immediate crisis, but the consequences of their actions loomed like a shadow. "You okay?" Captain Kane's voice broke through her thoughts. He stood nearby, his rifle slung over his back, his posture, "And we want to make it right." Another figure stepped forward, smaller than the first, but no less imposing. Its voice was sharp and accusatory. "You seek redemption, but you have already brought ruin. The Protector's activation was your doing. The core's instability was your doing. What more will you take from us?" Kane bristled. "Look, we're not here to start a fight. We're trying to fix what's broken." The tall figure raised a hand, silencing its companion. "Your words mean little, but your actions have bought you time. If you truly seek to understand, then come." The figure led them deeper into the settlement, past structures that blended human ingenuity with crystalline growths. Elena marveled at the architecture, the way the crystals seemed to grow organically around the remnants of human-built walls and towers. "This is incredible," she murmured. "It's like the crystals are alive." "They are," the figure said. "The crystal is the lifeblood of this planet, and the machine is its heart. Together, they sustain us." "And the evolution?" Zara asked, glancing nervously at their crystalline escorts. "How did you?" "Adapt," the figure interrupted. "We had no choice. The planet reshaped us, just as it reshaped itself. What you see now is what remains of humanity." They reached a large chamber, carved into the heart of the settlement. In its center stood a smaller, intricately designed version of the machine they had encountered in the cavern. It pulsed with a soft, steady light. "This is a conduit node," the figure explained. "It allows us to monitor the machine's functions and maintain the balance." Elena stepped closer, her fingers itching to study the device. "And the core? What exactly is its purpose?" The figure hesitated. "It is a guardian. It ensures the survival of the planet by any means necessary. But its programming was flawed. When your people fled, the machine grew unstable. The Protector was created to enforce balance, but even it could not withstand the strain. Which means the core isn't fully functional," Zara said, her tone grim. "We're sitting on a time bomb." "Then we need to fix it," Elena said. "With your help." The figure regarded her for a long moment. "To fix the core is to risk everything. Are you prepared for that?" Elena met its gaze, her voice steady. "If we don't, this planet and everything connected to it will die. We can't let that happen. The figure inclined its head. Then we will show you. But be warned, the truth of the machine is not what you expect. As they began their work, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the edge of something far greater than they understood. The machine, the crystals, the evolution of the descendants, everything was connected, but the full picture remained just out of reach. And as the settlement's lights dimmed, signaling the coming night, she looked to the horizon and wondered, was the forgotten galaxy finally revealing its secrets, or were they walking into a deeper abyss than they could imagine? The chamber hummed softly, its crystalline node glowing like a pulsating heartbeat. The team stood in the center of the settlement's technological hub, surrounded by the descendants, who watched their every move with quiet intensity. Dr. Elena Carter ran her hands over the smaller version of the core, its surface warm to the touch, as if alive. This node, Elena began, her voice measured, it's like a terminal, isn't it? A way to interface with the main machine. The tall figure, their guide, inclined its head. It allows us to communicate with the core, to stabilize the balance when the planet shifts, but it is not omnipotent. The machine's primary directives cannot be overwritten. Directives? Kane asked, stepping closer. What kind of directives are we talking about? The figure hesitated, the glow in its crystalline eyes dimming momentarily. To ensure survival at all costs, to purge anything deemed a threat. The air grew heavier as Zarateka's scanner beeped incessantly. I don't like the sound of that. Purge usually means bad news for us. Isn't it already a threat? Yates asked, gesturing to the glowing node. We've seen what it can do. How is this planet still standing? It is standing, the figure said, because we maintain the balance. For centuries, we have worked in harmony with the machine to keep it stable, but your arrival has disrupted that harmony. Elena shook her head. We didn't mean to disrupt anything. We were trying to understand, to learn. And yet your actions have set events into motion that cannot be undone, the figure replied. Kane crossed his arms, his tone sharp. Then tell us how to fix it. What does the machine want? What's it protecting? For a moment, silence filled the chamber, broken only by the soft hum of the node. Then the figure spoke, its voice low and deliberate. It is protecting a secret, a truth about your kind, buried deep within the core. The words hung in the air like a thundercloud. Elena's chest tightened. A truth about humanity? What truth? The machine was not simply built to terraform, the figure said. It was designed to evolve, to adapt to any environment, any condition. But in its evolution, it uncovered something your people feared. What are you talking about? Zara asked, her voice edged with irritation. We've studied every corner of the galaxy. There's nothing out here to fear except the things we create. The figure stepped closer to Elena, its glowing eyes locking onto hers. Not everything in this galaxy was created by you. The word sent a shiver down her spine. Are you saying there's something else out there? Not out there, the figure said. Here, beneath this planet. The core discovered it when your kind first arrived. It is why the machine began to destabilize. It is why your people abandoned this galaxy. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Yates broke it with a nervous laugh. Wait, hold on. Are you saying there's something buried under this planet? Something older than the machine? That's impossible, Zara said, shaking her head. The machine was designed to build new worlds from scratch. There's no way it could have found something pre-existing. Unless it wasn't the first, Elena said softly. Everyone turned to her. She met their gazes, her mind racing. What if the core wasn't the first advanced technology on this planet? What if there was something here before humanity even arrived? That's a hell of a theory, Carter, Kane said, but it doesn't change the fact that we need to stabilize this planet now, not dig up ancient ghosts. Elena turned to the figure. You've interfaced with the machine. You know what it found. What is it? The figure's voice dropped to a near whisper. We do not know its name, but we call it the Abyss. It is buried deep beneath the core, an entity of unimaginable power. The machine was built to contain it, but when your kind fled, the containment weakened. Yes, Kane muttered. You couldn't pick a less ominous name. This isn't a joke, Elena said. If the Abyss is real and the core is linked to it, then the entire energy network we just activated could be feeding it. Feeding it? Yates asked, his voice rising. Feeding it what? Elena turned to Zara. Life, energy, everything. The chamber shook violently, a deep rumble resonating from below. The glowing veins in the walls flickered, their light dimming before surging brighter. The descendants exchanged uneasy glances, their crystalline forms shimmering erratically. What's happening? Kane demanded. The core is unstable, the figure said. The link you created is overloading the network. Helios, Kane barked into his comm. Report. The AI's calm voice responded. Seismic activity increasing. Energy levels in the core are rising exponentially. Projection suggests critical failure within 2 hours. Critical failure? Zara exclaimed. As in planetary collapse? Affirmative, Helios replied. Elena's heart pounded. The abyss. It's waking up. Kane spun toward the figure. How do we stop this? The figure hesitated, then gestured toward the node. You must descend to the core. There, you may sever the link and stabilize the balance. That's a suicide mission, Zara said, panic creeping into her voice. We barely survived the last time we were down there. Elena stepped forward. We don't have a choice. If we don't stop this, everything dies. This planet, its people, and maybe more. Kane cursed under his breath, but nodded. All right, we gear up and head back. Helios, prepare the Ecliptica for an emergency evacuation, just in case. As the team prepared to descend into the depths once more, Elena glanced at the glowing node, its light flickering like a dying star. The truth of the abyss weighed heavily on her mind. The forgotten galaxy wasn't just hiding its secrets anymore, it was fighting to keep them buried. And Elena couldn't shake the feeling that the closer they got to the core, the more those secrets would consume them. The rumble of the planet echoed through the settlement as the Ecliptica prepared for an emergency descent. The glowing veins in the crystalline structures flickered like a dying heartbeat, a constant reminder of the precarious situation. Elena Carter stood at the ship's airlock, staring out at the alien settlement one last time. The descendants watched in silence, their shimmering forms blending with the glowing architecture. She felt the weight of their stares, their silent plea for survival. They're counting on us, she said softly. They don't have much choice, Captain Kane replied, checking his rifle's charge. His voice was steady, but the tension in his jaw betrayed his unease. Zarateka approached, her tablet strapped securely to her arm. This is insane. Just putting that out there. We're diving straight into the core of a planet that's on the verge of tearing itself apart. Because, why not? It's not just the planet, Yates said, his tone grim. If this abyss thing wakes up, we might be looking at a galactic-level disaster. We don't have time to debate, Kane said. Helios, status? Descent coordinates locked, Helios replied through the ship's comms. Planetary activity is increasing. Recommend immediate action. Kane turned to the team, his gaze sweeping over them. This is it. We go in, we stabilize the core, and we get out. No unnecessary risks. Understood? Everyone nodded, though the fear in their eyes was impossible to miss. The journey into the core was like descending into another world. The Ecliptica navigated a labyrinth of glowing tunnels, each one pulsing with light that grew more erratic the deeper they went. The ship's scanners struggled to keep up, bombarded by waves of interference from the crystalline structures. This place is alive, Zara said, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship. The crystals, the machine, they're all part of the same system. And that system is breaking down, Kane said. Focus on the mission. Elena sat at her console, her eyes fixed on the data streaming across her screen. The energy readings were unlike anything she'd ever seen, a chaotic mix of power surges and fluctuations that defied logic. We're nearing the core, Helios announced. Prepare for landing. The ship shuddered as it touched down on a narrow platform overlooking a vast chamber. The core loomed before them, a towering structure of steel and crystal, its surface glowing with a blinding light. Conduits snaked out from its base, connecting to the surrounding walls like veins feeding a heart. It's beautiful, Elena whispered, stepping out onto the platform. Beautiful and deadly, Kane muttered, his rifle at the ready. Let's move. The team approached the core cautiously, the air thick with energy. Elena felt it vibrating through her boots, a low hum that seemed to resonate with her very heartbeat. This is it, she said, staring up at the core, the heart of the machine. And the thing keeping this planet from imploding, Yates added. Or so we hope. Zara's scanner beeped wildly as she approached one of the conduits. The energy levels are off the charts. If we don't stabilize this soon, we're toast. How do we sever the link? Kane asked, scanning the area for threats. Elena pointed to a panel embedded in the core's base. There. That's the interface. If we can access it, we might be able to manually adjust the energy flow. And if we can't? Yates asked. We overload it, Zara said grimly. But that's a last resort. The backlash could destroy the entire planet. Elena knelt beside the panel, her hands trembling as she accessed the interface. The screen lit up with symbols she didn't recognize, a swirling mass of alien data. I need time, she said, her voice shaking. This system it's like nothing I've ever seen. Time we don't have, Kane replied, his eyes scanning the chamber. Helios, status on seismic activity? Activity increasing. Hell, iOS replied. Structural integrity of the cavern is at 54%. Elena gritted her teeth, her fingers flying across the panel. She felt the machine pushing back against her, its defenses rising like a living organism, rejecting a foreign body. It doesn't want me here, she muttered. Then you'd better convince it otherwise, Zara said, her eyes glued to her tablet. The ground shook violently, and the glowing veins along the walls flared brighter. From the shadows, crystalline constructs emerged, their forms larger and more menacing than before. We've got incoming, Kane shouted, raising his rifle. The constructs advanced, their movements eerily coordinated. Kane and Yates opened fire, plasma bolts lighting up the chamber. The blast struck the constructs, shattering some but barely slowing others. Keep them off me, Elena shouted, her focus never wavering from the interface. Zara joined the fight, using a handheld energy disruptor to disable the construct's crystalline limbs. They just keep coming, she yelled. How many of these things are there? Enough to kill us if we don't move faster, Kane replied, reloading his rifle. Elena's mind raced as she deciphered the alien code. She could feel the machine's resistance, a living presence that seemed to challenge her every move. And then she found it, a command buried deep within the system, a way to redirect the energy flow. I've got it, she cried. I can stabilize the core. Do it, Kane shouted, blasting another construct. Elena entered the command, her hands shaking. The core pulsed violently, its light flaring brighter than ever. The entire chamber trembled as the conduits shifted, their energy streams realigning. The constructs froze mid-step, their glowing eyes dimming as the core stabilized. The chamber grew quiet, the chaotic hum replaced by a steady, rhythmic pulse. The team stood in stunned silence, their breaths ragged. Elena collapsed to her knees, her body trembling from exhaustion. Is it over? Yates asked, his voice barely above a whisper. For now, Elena said, her voice hoarse. The core is stable, but the abyss, it's still down there. Kane helped her to her feet, his expression grim. Then we're not done, not yet. As the team regrouped, the core emitted a low, resonant tone. Elena looked up, her heart sinking as she realized the truth. The abyss wasn't just waking up, it was listening. The core's rhythmic hum reverberated through the chamber, but it no longer felt calming. It was a warning, a steady drumbeat announcing something far darker stirring beneath them. The crystalline conduits pulsed with a subtle, unnatural energy, and the air felt heavier, charged with a tension that made every breath feel labored. Dr. Elena Carter stared at the core, her thoughts racing. The abyss was real, and it was waking up. Elena, Captain Kane said, his voice low and steady. What's going on? The core's stable. Why does it feel like things just got worse? She turned to him, her face pale. Because the machine isn't the only thing we've stabilized. The energy link we created, it's feeding something beneath us. The abyss. You're saying we just powered up the bad guy? Zara Teka said, her tone edged with panic. Fantastic. Best mission ever. Yates paced near the edge of the chamber, his rifle clutched tightly. So what do we do now? Blow it all to hell? No, Elena said sharply. If we destabilize the core again, the planet will collapse. We'll lose everything and everyone. Then we need another option, Kane said, his jaw tight. Fast. The ground beneath them trembled, a low rumble that sent dust cascading from the chamber walls. The crystalline constructs, once lifeless, flickered back to life. Their movements were sluggish at first, but they quickly regained their terrifying precision. They're reactivating, Zara shouted, raising her disruptor. Helios, Kane barked into his comm. What's happening? Seismic activity increasing, Helios replied. New energy source detected below the core. Analysis indicates it is drawing power from the planetary network. The abyss, Elena whispered. It's siphoning energy from the core. Kane raised his rifle. Then we cut it off. How do we stop it? Elena hesitated, her mind racing. We need to sever the link between the core and the abyss. But if the abyss is awake, it won't go quietly, Yates finished grimly. The constructs advanced, their crystalline limbs glinting in the dim light. Kane and Yates opened fire, plasma rounds tearing through the air. The blast shattered a few constructs, but more emerged from the shadows, their glowing eyes locked on the humans. We can't hold them off forever, Zara yelled, ducking behind a conduit. We won't have to, Elena said, determination hardening her voice. There's another way. What are you talking about? Kane asked, firing another shot. Elena pointed to the core, the interface. I can redirect the energy flow, send it back into the abyss. Overload it. Overload it? Zara's eyes widened. Do you have any idea what that'll do? No, Elena admitted, but it's our only chance. The battle intensified as the team fought to protect Elena. She knelt beside the interface, her hands trembling as she accessed the machine's systems. The alien symbols blurred together, but she forced herself to focus, her mind working faster than it ever had. The constructs closed in, their movements relentless. Kane shouted orders, his voice barely audible over the din of gunfire and energy blasts. Elena, he yelled. How much longer? Just a little more, she called back, her fingers flying across the controls. The ground shook violently, and a deafening roar filled the chamber. From below, a massive crystalline structure began to emerge, its surface writhing with dark energy. The abyss had awakened. Elena's heart pounded as she entered the final command. The core pulsed, its light intensifying as the redirected energy surged through the conduits. The chamber was bathed in blinding light, and the constructs froze mid-attack, their forms crackling with energy. It's working, Elena shouted. The abyss is losing power, but the triumph was short-lived. The crystalline structure that was the abyss shuddered, and a deep, guttural voice echoed through the chamber. You cannot destroy what you do not understand. The abyss shed out, tendrils of dark energy surging toward the team. Kane shoved Elena aside, firing his rifle in a desperate attempt to hold it back. The energy struck the platform, sending shards of crystal flying. We need to get out of here, Zara screamed. Not yet, Elena yelled. I have to finish the sequence. You'll die if you stay here, Kane shouted. Then I'll die, Elena said, her voice steady. But if I don't do this, we all die. Elena activated the final command, and the core unleashed a massive surge of energy. The light was blinding, the sound deafening. The abyss roared in defiance, its dark tendrils disintegrating as the energy overwhelmed it. The team scrambled back toward the ecliptica, the platform crumbling beneath their feet. Kane grabbed Elena, pulling her to safety as the core's energy pulse consumed the chamber. Helios! Kane yelled. Get us out of here! The ship's engines roared to life, lifting them off the collapsing platform. The team clung to their seats as the ship ascended, the cavern collapsing in on itself. Through the viewport, they watched as the planet's surface shimmered with a final burst of light. The core stabilized, its glow returning to a calm, steady rhythm. The abyss was gone. On the bridge, the team sat in stunned silence. Elena stared out at the planet below, her chest heavy with exhaustion and relief. Is it over? Yates asked, his voice barely audible. For now, Elena said, but the abyss, it's not just a thing, it's a warning, a reminder of what we left behind. Kane placed a hand on her shoulder. You did good, Carter. We all did. She nodded, but her thoughts were far from settled. The Forgotten Galaxy had revealed one of its darkest secrets, but she knew there were more waiting to be uncovered. As the ecliptica broke through the atmosphere, Elena made a silent promise. She would return. Because the abyss wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a shadow of what lay ahead.